and gentlemen, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome to the Ultrarunning Magazine podcast, Mr. Bob Becker, who is the record holder of the oldest finisher ever to finish the Badwater 135 just a few weeks ago on July 9th. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Scotty. Very glad to be here.
So how's the body feeling after such an accomplishment?
A little more beat up than usual. It may have something to do with my getting a little bit older here, but I'm doing fine. I really am. Probably in better shape than I have a right to be. Doing okay.
I would have to ask, like, how many hours did you sleep when you finally got to put your head down onto a pillow?
Quite a few, although we had to get up to make our drive back to Las Vegas to the airport. So I probably could have slept around the clock had the opportunity presented itself.
I'll bet. So I gave a great introduction before we got to start talking, so folks have a good idea of who you are and some of your accomplishments, which are nothing short of amazing and historic. But before we get to Badwater and your amazing finish, and previous attempt back in 2022. Love to hear that story too. But let's get an idea of who Bob Becker is. So my question to you, sir, is who is Bob Becker?
Well, that's quite an opening question. A guy who discovered ultra running 20 years ago that changed my life would be the short answer. I ran the mile in high school. I played sports as an adult. Went to the gym, worked out, ran a little bit, but was never really a runner. And it was actually after I moved to Florida, it was in 2002, when some friends from Minnesota called and said, "Hey, we're going to run Grandma's Marathon. Why don't you come up and join us?" And that was the beginning of my downfall. So I went out and bought a pair of running shoes. I asked the people in the store what I do now. They put me in touch with a marathon training group, and it was going to be a one and done, but I wound up qualifying for Boston. So I said, well, I better keep doing this. Can't not do Boston. So I started training with a group. And in 2004, one of them said to me, have you ever heard of the Marathon des Sables? It's an ultra marathon. My response being, what's an ultra marathon? And I went home and checked it out. And the next year we both had birthdays ending in 0. So we said, let's do this. And I went to MDS, had just an amazing experience. And the whole nature of the race, the whole nature of the whole camaraderie aspect of this wonderful sport, it just caught me, and I've been doing this stuff ever since, and loving every minute of it.
Wonderful. That's a great intro into who you are, and just kind of tells everyone kind of who you are, what makes you tick just a little bit. Sort of just take on life and take on challenges. And but what was it about that first ultra marathon that just kind of set your heart on fire for this amazing sport?
Well, it's a combination of things. I think it was the challenge of the race itself, and how difficult it was, and how, it's all very personal. It's all about you. I mean, it's a competition, but at the end of the day, you're competing with yourself to get to that finish line. The spectacular beauty of the desert, the fact that I would otherwise never have gone to a place like that in all likelihood. And then probably most importantly, that sense of camaraderie and mutual support that's very much part of the sport, and certainly was out there. That's what got me probably more than anything else.
Wow. And kind of give us a flavor of the things you've done since that first ultramarathon in the last 20 years.
Well, there was another part of my life that changed dramatically because of that introduction and kind of falling in love with the sport. So around 2008, 2008, when the real estate crash happened in the U.S., I had been in the mortgage banking business. And a very long story short, I wound up taking a look around in South Florida, and there were no ultras down here, very few in Florida at all. And a few friends and I decided to check out running the Florida Keys to see if perhaps it would be an opportunity to put a race on down there. So we started at Key Largo, and 100 miles later, we wound up in Key West, and we thought, yeah, this could be pretty cool running across all these islands. So in 2008, I took a vow of poverty and decided to become a race director, and I left my mortgage world behind. And so I've been a full-time race director ever since then. And so my newfound sport, my newfound love, became my work as well. And so I've been wearing twin hats of runner and race director ever since. Yeah, so it was quite a transition for me.
The man behind the Florida Keys 100. My goodness, I've thought about that challenge so many times. It seems so appealing to me. I got to see the Keys for the first time a few weeks ago
Oh,
as I
wow.
was flying over them from Orlando, and I thought,
Okay.
man, the dream, keep the dream alive, and maybe someday I'll be out there and running into your arms at the finish line. Um,
Love to have you anytime.
Oh man, that'd be a dream. That'd be a dream. So I want to get into more about you and what makes you tick. So you're 80 now, and you're still running some of the hardest races on earth, Badwater included. So how do you mentally approach aging as a runner and as a competitor?
Well, I don't really think of myself as being a particular age,
Mhm.
in the sense that I feel that if others can do it, so can I. Now, within reason, and that is, first of all, they need to be races I choose to run need to be realistic for me. So living in dead flat Florida, where there are no hills, our highest hill is 75 feet above sea level. It's a bridge called the 17th Street Causeway. So for me to apply to run hard rock doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
There are also no trails down here to speak of. So the first thing I have to do is be very realistic about that. Secondly, I just don't have the speed I once had. So I have to look at races where the cutoffs, again, are realistic. And so more typically than not, friends talk to me about a race they've heard about or are planning on doing, and it sounds appealing. So I decide, okay, that's what I want to do. Or there's a challenge that speaks to me in particular for one reason or another, like Badwater, that I know we'll be talking about. So I don't have a long bucket list. In fact, right now I don't have anything on my agenda, but there will be other races certainly. So it's a function of being careful about what you choose. But otherwise, hey, if somebody else can get out there and do it, I'm not going to win it in all likelihood, but there's no reason I can't finish it.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about Badwater now, and before we get to this year, let's talk about what transpired back in 2022 when you finished just 17 minutes past the cutoff. I've seen the video of you. It just heartbreaking. Seeing you on your feet and on your hands going up to Portal. It's inspiring. It's gut wrenching. It's all the things. So let's talk about that moment. What that did to you emotionally and mentally.
Well, it was a hard finish, that's for sure. Until about mile 100, I was well ahead of cutoffs. I was doing fine, and then my back just gave out, and I was bent over in half the rest of the way for the most part, and I'd stop, and my crew would kind of straighten me out, and I'd be able to more or less stand straight for a very short time, and then I was right back over again. So heading up the Portal Road, that 13-mile finish it wasn't painful. It just was difficult mentally to continue, but I was bound and determined to finish. And there were a lot of people up there kind of cheering me on, and that certainly was a motivator as well. And as that 48-hour clock ticked down to zero, I think I probably disappointed them more than I did myself.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it was something that I had been thinking about since I think I was maybe 70, 73, 74, that I had a shot at becoming the oldest finisher. And so that's what motivated me to run that year, to apply, get in, and run 3 years ago.
Wow, wow, wow. And that climb, it's what, 4,800 feet of climbing,
Yeah.
roughly. I mean, just it's amazing. I mean, a lot of people they would mentally break and just say, all right, there's just how I I can't foresee continuing, but you did. What was going through your mind to keep pushing yourself forward like that to that degree? My God.
Well, I'd already completed 122 miles for the privilege of doing 13 more. So, it was there to be done. And, again, I was bound to finish it. I was just motivated to. this year was my 18th straight year at Badwater. I've run the race 6 times. I've crewed for a number of other runners. I've been on the race staff. I'm a Badwater groupie. I mean, I love the race. I love the family out there. So in 2007, when I crewed for my buddy Natu Natraj the first year, and then the next year he crewed for me, I was stuck. I was there. And so I've been out there doing something ever since. And in 2010, when Jack Dines, who was 75 at the time, set the current record, I was there at the finish line with a lot of others cheering him on, welcoming him in. It was a pretty cool thing to see. And so as I got older and more years under my belt out there, I thought, there's a shot maybe I can do this. Now, in those days, you had 60 hours to finish the race. And Jack actually finished in 59:13. So, and 2010 was the last year that you had 60 hours to finish, and then it dropped to 48. So one of the challenges for me to be able to become the oldest finisher was having to beat his time by basically 12 hours. And it's just a whole different, it was just, apples and oranges race, really.
Yeah.
But I had, the 3 times that I had finished previously, I finished right around 40 hours, a little above or a little below. So in theory, I could do it. It was just a question of consistency and not having, calf cramps or back problems, which happened to be the case 3 years ago. Yeah. So
this year you.
Yeah, I can continue if you like.
Yeah, no, you have a score to settle. It sounds like coming back this year.
Basically, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfinished business. Sure.
What's that like? What was it? How is your mindset different, would you say, if at all, this year versus when you did it back in 22?
Well, after that experience 3 years ago, and I did not say to myself, I'm coming back next year. I didn't have that. That was not where my head was at all.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether there'd be another attempt or not. And last November, I ran Marshall and Heather Ulrich's Route 66 Ultra down in Arizona, which is 140 miles. And I'd run a number of other races, but that was the longest one I'd done for a while. And I ran well, and I thought, maybe there's a shot at thinking about this for next year if I can get in. Now, Lisa Smith-Batchen, who I'm sure you know, has been my coach from the beginning for 20 years.
Wow.
And Lisa's always had me ready on race day. And this year she was able to also be my crew chief. Her schedule worked out. And I knew that would be huge. So we had the problem of my back to think about. I had to really work on my core strength. I had to do as much hill work or simulated hill work as I possibly could. And, Marshall and Heather Ulrich decided to be on my crew as well. I couldn't have had a more experienced, spectacular crew. And
dream team.
My fourth, I'm sorry?
What a dream team that is. Sorry to interrupt. But
absolutely. And my fourth crew was a buddy of mine from here in South Florida, Will Litwin, who I've run Brazil 135 with him twice. We ran Badwater Salt and Sea on a team a couple months ago. I mean, a good running friend of mine who knows me really well. So those 4, it was like the perfect team. I felt very confident about my training. I never for a moment thought I couldn't do it, couldn't finish it. And, the beauty of having folks like that who know you well, especially your coach, is when you need a little bit of tough love, you get it. And so Lisa really, really helped me get through the tough spots this time and get up the hill with a few hours to spare, which was, very gratifying.
Wow. Okay. So let's get into your race report. Let's kind of go through the events. You start at nighttime. It's 118 degrees. And I do want to talk about your training because it is compelling, and I do want to hear what's this relationship that you've had for decades with your running coach, which is truly amazing and so special. Let's talk through the event. So 118 degrees, nighttime, you're off on your way.
Yeah, and it's you start down in Badwater Basin at the wooden sign on a wooden platform, and then you start running up a ramp to a sidewalk. You hop down onto the road, and away you go. That's the sequence. So I'm feeling really good, and the gun goes off, if you will. I hit my watch to start my watch, and my watch doesn't start. Some weird screen comes up, and it just that was my start. I said,
did the screen say, "Are you sure?"
Are you out of your friggin' mind? I think is what it said. But I so we climbed up the ramp, and I'm looking for Will because he's our techie guy, and I see him, and I said, "Hey, can you get this thing right?" So from the very beginning, my watch did not calibrate the whole race, so that was kind of funky. Then 3 miles in, my left calf started cramping up. Not a Charlie horse, but like it was got really, really tight and sore. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? This is no way to start this deal. But eventually I worked through it. It didn't get any worse. If I'd stop for some reason, then start again, I'd limp a little bit until it shook itself out. And when you do these things, if it's not one muscle or one issue, it's another.
Yeah.
If something happens, it starts going away, and then you get another glitch here or there. But so the start was a little funky, as I said, but other than that, I was doing fine, keeping my pace. I had a very, very specific best case, worst case scenario all planned out, using landmarks along the way to consider the amount, my pacing, and basically how much time it would take, best case, worst case, to get there. And the key was for my crew to keep me within those parameters. As long as I did that, that was fine. I wasn't racing against anybody. I was racing against myself and that plan. And so very quickly I became DFL. I mean, I was way in the back. Everybody's taken off. You've got a lot of rookies, and there are always some who make that rookie mistake of going out too fast. But that didn't really bother me. I just kept going, and we had our plan. We stuck to it, as I said, and really my crew made it all happen. There were moments out there when I didn't want to eat, or I didn't want to take another salt stick or whatever it happened to be, or drink, and they kept me on plan. They really did, and that's really, at the end of the day, they're the ones that deserve all the credit for getting me to the finish line.
Yeah, and that's where experience at Badwater is worth its weight in gold.
It is.
And because it's a completely different mindset, and you have to have the stomach for it, to see what your runner is going through. You're just enduring so much out there, with the miles and the heat and sleep deprivation, everything. I can't even imagine. It's so amazing. But so let's talk about those, like, strategies you put in place for staying hydrated, for your food, and staying cool, and how do you tolerate the heat? So what was the game plan there for those elements?
Well, yeah. Incorporating into the larger picture, the first cutoff is at 50 miles. So you get to it's basically rolling until you get to Stovepipe Wells at mile 42, and then you start up a very long climb from there. That's at sea level, up to 5,000 feet at the top of Town Pass. Well, 8 miles up from there, mile 50 is the first cutoff, and it's pretty tight. And most years, a number of people finish their race right there. They just don't make it. So my first focus is always on getting to that 50-mile point, ideally with a little time to spare. And then things get a little easier after that. I mean, you still have interim time cutoffs, but that first 50 is the toughie. So you're running through the night. It is, as you said, it was 118 at the start. Because of the nature of the desert, the rocks and the sand and the road absorb that heat during the day, and they gradually radiate it back at you during the night. So it doesn't cool off right away at all when the sun goes down. But you don't have the intense sun on you, so that certainly is an advantage. By the time you get, in my case, back of the packer, middle back of the packer, you're hitting Stovepipe Wells at mile 42 as the sun's coming up roughly. And so that as you make that long climb, which is, for me, and except for the elites, mostly a lot of walking, you've got to power walk that hill as it's getting hotter. Once we got to that mile 50 cutoff and made it, then I was able to take a little break and start cooling down and preparing for the heat of the day, which was nothing original. I use an ice bandana around my neck, replacing those constantly. I use a buff that I tie off on one end, leaving the other end open under my hat on top of my head. When I have a pacer with me, they're spraying me down with a sprayer with water. We used other various pieces of gear that would hold ice or hold water for a while, towels around my neck. I even use this, Lisa has this very lightweight fabric that we that we called a babushka, but basically it's a shroud thing that you wet down and it covers you and almost like a big towel all over you, but lightweight. We did all of those things, and I met the crew very frequently. Usually in past years, it would be every 2 miles. This year was roughly every 1 mile to constantly replace the ice, constantly, and whatever else I needed. And that was a huge help to keep me going. So once you get to the top of Town Pass, you start downhill into Panamint Valley, and it's roughly 3,000 feet of descent. You go across the valley, and then you start climbing again. That is the hottest part of the race. Now that it starts at night, it didn't always start at night, but in these past few years, when it started at night, Panamint Valley is the toughest part in terms of heat. And at one point, that radiant heat coming up from the road was literally burning my legs. So I had brought a pair of very lightweight white pants with me, and I actually put those on as I was going through Panamint Valley. We were prepared for it. I put them on, and it really made a difference. That heat stopped. It just wasn't a problem anymore. We get to the far side, on up Panamint Valley, up to Panamint itself, and then we started another very long climb up to Father Crowley.
Before we move on, what is the peak temperature there, and what do you think the radiant heat temp is like?
I don't know about the radiant heat. The temp was again somewhere around 117, 118, so it climbed back up. It never got over 120 this year, which was great.
Yeah.
But 118 is hot enough.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what the overall heat impact was, but it was brutal. It really was hot. Yeah, and not a cloud in the sky, of course. So you're out there.
Yeah. So you are, coming up to the 100-mile, barrier where things kind of fell apart, for you the last time. Is that going through your mind as you're approaching that digit?
Well, yes and no. I wasn't having an issue. I was moving pretty well. I wasn't. Back up a step, because my strategy, again, keeping in mind I'm in Florida, so I'll talk later about some training techniques for hills. But for the most part, I'm going to be power walking the ups and running the downs, although not totally, because I don't want to blow out my quads either. And then on the flats, or slightly gradually rolling stuff, I'll do a 1-minute run, 1-minute walk sequence, which isn't for everybody, but it works for me. And by the time we got over towards 100 miles, it was I wasn't running as much. I was doing more walking, but I was still doing some running. I was doing pretty well. So we get to that 100-mile point, and I'm not having big back problems. My back's bothering me a little, but not much at all. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. As it turns out, gradually, as we approach Lone Pine, as we get from 100 on, actually, my back did start bothering me a little bit, and I did start leaning forward. Nothing like 3 years ago, but it still had a back issue to start thinking about as we got into Lone Pine and began the climb up the Portal Road. I certainly didn't want to have my race destroyed. So Lisa actually suggested something I hadn't tried before, which was to actually clasp my hands behind my back and kind of lean my hands back. And what it did was it pulled me up more forward, more straight. And it also slowed me down, because I was moving probably faster than I should have been when we started up the Portal Road. And that one little trick, that one little technique, I employed a good bit of the time climbing the Portal Road, and it helped me get there.
Wow. That's amazing. So what was that like to finish knowing that you have the record, and must have been just a glorious moment?
Well, it's a combination of gratification and you're very, very happy about it, and exhaustion all at the same time. So, and again, there were a lot of my friends were there at the finish line to cheer me on, and that's always a lot of fun. And you race for you, but in a situation like that, you're certainly trying to race for your friends as well and not disappoint them.
Right.
And many of them were there 3 years ago, so it was pretty cool to say, okay, we got it this time, buddy.
It's great.
It was fun.
Your coach, sounds like I've read that she applies some tough love to you out there on the course to get you going. What's that interaction like What's it like for you when you're having a down moment, and your crew really has to lift you up?
Well, I know that this crew, well, it's always the case with the crew, but particularly in this case, because I know all of them so well, they had my best interest at heart. So I might have been fighting internally that no, I didn't want that next gel or whatever it was. But basically, when they said eat, I ate. Whatever I drink, I drank. I just had complete faith that they knew what they were doing and would keep me on schedule. One of the weird things I learned a long time ago was you'd be out there, and let's say you're on a schedule to have an electrolyte, and I generally drink water. So I'm using salt stick or another type of capsule for my electrolyte intake. And usually I'm taking something every half hour. And I learned a long time ago that when they say it's time, it is time, even though to you, you might feel like, hey, I just had one of those 5 minutes ago, leave me alone,
Yeah.
So you have to have faith in your crew that they're keeping you on track. And I absolutely did. And, in Lisa's case, and I will talk probably about hill training, but I actually went out to Jackson Hole, where she and her husband Jay live, about I don't know 2 or 3 weeks before the race to train in the hills for 3 days, to climb the mountains for 3 days, and stayed with them. I mean, that's the kind of relationship it is. So again, complete faith. She always has me ready if she says do it. I'm compliant. I just even if I'm unhappy about it, I'll slug down that next bit of calories.
How did you meet your coach?
Well, Jay Batchen has for many years, or had for a long, long time, been the American liaison for the Marathon des Sables. And Lisa and Jay put on a training camp for a number of years before that race for anybody running MDS who was interested out in the Tetons where they live. And so in 2005, in preparation for my first ultra, I went out to that training camp knowing, man, I'm going to learn a lot out here and have a sense of what's going on and then get some hill work in. So I met them at that training camp and been friends, and she's been coaching me ever since. It was that, I never planned on getting into ultras. It just sort of happened. And it just happened to be MDS. That was the first ultra that someone introduced me to and suggested we think about. And then it was her training camp that came along. That was an opportunity that I took advantage of. And all these things just fell into place. And that's how it happened. And she's been tolerating me ever since.
And what a moment that she got to share with you at the finish line at Badwater, just having such a strong connection with your coach. I mean, it's a lovely thing to have such a strong connection to someone who's helping you reach your goals like that. And for 20 years, my God, that's a beautiful story. You guys have shared a lot together.
Yeah, it's very, very special. And I haven't known Marshall and Heather that long, but I've known him for quite some time. When he did his Transcon in 2008, I went out and spent a few days helping crew him across. And I crewed for him at Badwater somewhere around 2010 or 11. I can't remember exactly, or 2012. So, we've known each other a long time. We've seen each other along the way. I ran his race their race last November, as I indicated. So there was also a relationship there, not quite as intense and as experienced, and not as much longevity as with Lisa, but a long time. And again, the same with Will. Lots of time spent together. So yeah, it was especially gratifying to have those guys all right there with me, breaking that tape. That was pretty cool.
So how did Lisa prepare you for this go around?
Excuse me. Well, Lisa is she tailors her coaching to each student. In my case, age appropriate training and race appropriate training. She's not a huge believer in long mileage. Probably the most mileage I did in any given week was 60 or 70 miles, not any more than that. But a lot of cross training, a lot of core work, and finding ways to try to simulate the hills that I was going to experience out in Badwater. So, I told you about the highest point in Fort Lauderdale. So she might have me do 20 or 25 miles back and forth across this bridge. And it's not the same as hitting 5, 10 miles straight up a hill, but it's something.
What does
So
your
doing,
Strava even look like with that kind of
oh,
run?
you know, you do that stupid bridge until you're brain dead. I mean, it's just, it's horrible. But you know, you take what you got,
Yeah,
right?
what you got? Yeah.
Yeah. So when there's an opportunity, if I can find a 20 or 30-story office building, I'll run stairs, but not, I don't get those opportunities too often.
Yeah.
Go to the gym and do a Stairmaster. And one of the techniques she uses, it's not original, but I've done this a lot over the last 20 years, is pulling a tire. So, you know, you grab an SUV tire with a tie to a rope and around your waist, and that drag creates, creates stress on the back of your legs as if you're moving uphill. So that's always been a big part of her training package for me getting ready for a race that involves hills. So it's that combination. And then, as I mentioned, I got to fly out to Jackson and spend 3 days just before the race on real hills, and that was helpful too.
Yeah. This is a weird question, Bob. But is this an SUV tire that you currently own, or is this out like at a gym somewhere?
This is an SUV tire that came off. It was a flat tire that came off one of my cars, you know, and actually eventually you wear them out and you have to replace them. So there's this gas station not too far from here that's been replacing tires for me when I've needed them for a long time. Yeah, this one was my own flat tire, believe it or not.
I love it. That's great. That's great. Yeah. So we got the training going with Lisa, her getting you prepared for it. Doing, oh my gosh, how do you even, I can't even imagine your hill training with the bridge and just knowing that you've got to put in a lot of time with that.
Well, Scotty, it's all about the audiobooks. You know, if I didn't have those to distract me, I don't know what I do. So I don't generally listen to a lot of music. Mostly it's audiobooks of all kinds. And in training, they keep me going. I don't always listen to them during the race, but you know, they're really helpful.
Yeah.
So then the other thing was I ran a number of races this year, kind of in preparation for Badwater. You know, Chris Kosman, the race director, has this Badwater Cup series that includes his 3 races, which would be in March. It's Badwater Cape Fear out on Bald Head Island, North Carolina, which is an interesting race in a beautiful place. It's 10 miles on the road and then 40 miles on the sand. It's a tough race, but beautiful. And I've run it every year. I really love the race. And then in April, his Badwater Salton Sea race, which is a team race where you stay together. It's not a relay. And Will Litwin, my buddy, and another friend of ours, and I ran that race and completed that in April. In February, I ran a 50-miler in Florida. And in January, Chris has this virtual 267 VR thing where you try to do 267 miles during the month, self-tracking and all that. So I did that. So there was actually some, you know, organized stuff going on between the time of Route 66 in November and Badwater 135 in June, and all of that contributed to having me ready and prepared and properly have a proper mindset.
Lovely. You know, given all this experience you've had at Badwater, I want to take the opportunity to ask you, do you have any favorite moments or stories or something that really stands out to you as you look back at your storied career at Badwater?
No real specific thing stands out other than perhaps let me think, last year and the year before, I was actually on the race support staff and out there as a monitor, as a marshal, if you will, with another Badwater vet, Dale Cugat, who lives in Texas and drives his truck up. And so we drove the course in his truck. And those 2 years, our first assignment was to monitor the lead women runners. So I got to watch Ashley Paulson both years as she won that race and just absolutely marveled at her athleticism and her positive spirit. I mean, last year, there was never not a moment when we drove by her or were sitting on the side of the road watching her come by that she didn't have a smile on her face. Wow. And her support and her pacers, same deal. Just an amazing runner. And I think probably of all the experiences out there, just watching her run and finish the way she did was quite a fabulous experience. I mean, she's tremendous.
Wow.
Other than that, it's just, it is something of a family out there. The people come back, many of them, year after year after year. Sometimes they can't run, but then they join a staff or they jump on someone's crew. So it really is like old home week every July. And for me, that's the most fun. Just getting to see your buddies once a year, if not more often.
Wow, what a reunion. That's great. Um, I want to move on to kind of your philosophy um, when it comes to running. You've said that if someone else can do it, there's probably not a whole lot of reason why I can't. Where does that belief come from?
My type A personality, I suppose. I've always been very competitive, and uh, I wouldn't say to a fault, but pretty competitive, and I think that probably is the bottom line. Whether it's running or any phase of life, um, I, I do believe that there's just not a whole lot that if someone else can do, I can't figure out a way to do myself within reason.
Sure, sure. Is that something that was instilled in you, or is that something that you kind of grew into as an adult?
Um, I had a pretty solid foundation as a kid and a very solid family, but I think it was just something that was innate. You start playing ball with your friends when you're 4, 5, 6 years old,
Yeah.
and either you're a competitive person or you're not a competitive person. I just, I don't really know where it came from. It just started right as early as I can remember.
Oh, oh, that's great. Yeah, that's a great virtue to have.
Well, it's there. I mean, I can remember 5 years old in the winter in Massachusetts, where I grew up, having snowball fights with my friends. And hell, I didn't want to get hit, So, I mean, it was just you duck fast and throw hard.
Duck fast and throw hard. That might be the title of this episode. I do want to talk about get back to the Florida Keys, where you're the race director there.
Sure.
It is such an interesting event. So, can you give the listener kind of overview of the Keys 100 experience?
Yeah, well, it's a very, very hot weather race. Different from Badwater because it's not that intense, dry desert heat, but between the humidity factor and the temperature and the intensity of the sun, because you're pretty far south, the heat is absolutely the main thing that you have to deal with, other than the distance. So there's a 100 miler, a 50 miler, a 50K. When we started the race, when we tried that in 2007, when 5 of us ran it to see if we thought it would be viable, at that point, April 30th was kind of the end of the season. So when you got into May, there was nowhere near as much traffic. The cost of the hotels was way down. And we actually looked at it and thought, you know what, let's have this race in May when the heat will be a factor. Let's make it a little more difficult because it is pretty much dead flat other than a few bridges. And that's what we decided to do. So we had it on, we started the race on the third Saturday in May in 2008. It's been that same race date ever since. But over the intervening years, the amount of tourism has increased exponentially, and it's year round.
Mhm.
So you don't have that off season anymore. You don't have the cheap hotel rates anymore. Key West is a major tourist destination, even more so, after COVID. So it's an expensive place to race or to set up a race, to produce a race, but it's absolutely spectacular. I mean, you're literally running across 42 islands to get from Key Largo to Key West. You got the Gulf of Mexico / Florida Bay on the right, and you've got the Atlantic Ocean on the left. And during the sunny part of the day, you're looking at turquoise water all around you. I mean, it's really pretty. So the attraction is the beauty of the Keys, and then getting to Key West, which is a funky town, really a fun place to hang out. For me, the most fun part of it is after the race is over, we have an after party. And the after party, and after that, wandering around town and doing a little bar hopping is absolutely the happiest point of my whole year, I think. So yeah, it's a beautiful race, and it's unique because of that island hopping.
And is there a kind of a charity component to this race?
Yeah, we've been raising money for the Cancer Foundation of the Florida Keys, which is located in Key West, since year 2 of the race. They do cancer screenings and other things like that, but their primary focus is on cancer patients and their families and providing them direct financial support. So, somebody gets cancer, can't work anymore, and frequently the spouse has to stay home and take care of the patient, so there's no income. So they do a lot of direct payment of, rent or mortgage payments, food, medication, people who can't get to the doctor or can't get somewhere for a test. They provide transportation. So it's very, very hands-on, very necessary. And they just do such a good job without wasting any money that we've been supporting them ever since. And we've raised over $250,000 for them. We're really happy about that.
Wow. Well, thank you to your organization for doing that. What a godsend that is to people. So many of us have been affected by cancer. Me included, and just my family and what that's like. And yeah, if you can't afford someone to stay at home with your loved one and you have to do it, it's wow, it is so difficult. So that's miraculous that you guys do that. What made, of all the charities that are out there, what made you choose that one?
Partly because it was local. The Keys are, which is affectionately known as the Conch Republic, by the way, is and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but it's somewhat insular. The fact that it's isolated, especially as the further down the Keys you go, there's one road in and one road out. So if you live in Key West, especially, or as they say, living on the rock, it's a reasonably close community. And when I first thought of, my friend Jared Knapp, who had originally asked me about Marathon des Sables, also helped me found Keys 100. So when the two of us did this, and I had the time to really run with this ball, I said, okay, we're going to do this. We don't want to become or appear to be carpetbaggers coming from up in Fort Lauderdale, where I live, down into the Keys. So I made an appointment, if you will, with the running club down there, the Key West Southernmost Runners, to come down and meet with them and tell them this idea that we had about this race. And most of them thought we were nuts, but they were very supportive. And it's continued over these years to be, next May will be the 18th year. It's been a great relationship. But what it reinforced to me was the importance of thinking locally, of trying to provide what business you can to those vendors down there, and hotels and restaurants. And there's a business in Key West that makes the plates for our awards, for example. I don't do it up here, I do it down there. And when there's a chance, that's what we do. So the same mindset for me, I felt the same way about a charitable component to the race. Who should it be? We're not a nonprofit, but the charitable component is important. So it took a year to understand who they were, what they did, to meet with them, get a sense from the community of what the foundation did. And it very quickly dawned on me that they were the perfect fit. I mean, it made total sense to give back there and to give back to a charity that was really getting the job done. So that's kind of how it happened.
Good for you guys. Keep it up. That's great.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
And by the way, just as an aside, I'm a cancer survivor myself, so I get it. I had prostate cancer in 2006. So, it's an important and a very worthwhile cause.
Yeah. I'm so glad you're still with us, Bob. Thanks for doing the work. Yeah. I would like to talk about the ultra running community in Florida. And use this time to maybe highlight some of the races and experiences that someone maybe who was considering wanting to run in your state, and give it a crack. What can you tell us?
Well, there are literally races here almost every weekend throughout the year. Again, we started Keys. That wasn't the case. I quickly created and started some other races throughout in different parts of the state. And many other people, I think, in large part due to Keys 100, because of the large number of runners we have, a lot of people were introduced to the sport. And gradually people realized how much fun it was and that there were no races in their own backyard. And so many other people have started races throughout the state. And there's a great variety of trail races and road races and, rails to trails and running through swamps, running through sand dunes. You pick it, it's here. So there are a lot of opportunities. I think you Google Florida ultramarathons, you're going to find all kinds of opportunities. And up north, you get some races through the Withlacoochee forest. It's great variety, and you never have to leave the state. You could run a race every weekend.
Love it. I love it. I hope that people get inspired to explore your great state. Just kind of getting some reflection from you. What do you wish more people knew about what's possible later in life?
Well, somebody asked me at the finish line here at Badwater about my thoughts about running this thing at 80. And what I said to him was, if you're turning 80 years old, find something to do, but probably not this. Okay. So, ultra running is not for everybody at any age, but certainly not when you get to be my age. But if one of the things that's kept me going over the years is feedback from people that have said, you've inspired my father or my grandmother or me to get off the sofa and start walking or riding a bike or taking a look at my diet, thinking about longevity, thinking about getting a little healthier, being a little smarter about what I do with my spare time. And that has become extremely important to me. And I guess that's probably the generic answer. For me, I'm able to keep doing this because I never stopped once I started. But you can start at any point in your life to do something. And maybe it's just walking around the block, and then maybe to the grocery store, and then maybe walking a 5K with your grandkids, or riding a bike or going swimming. Down here, getting on a paddleboard. There are all kinds of things that people can do, but my advice is to try to avoid, if you can, and if you're physically able, a completely sedentary lifestyle. Get off the couch and start moving. Get out in the yard and plant some flowers. You'll have a more fulfilling and a healthier life as a result.
Yeah, that's a great response. I like that. Finally, when people talk about you 50 years from now, what do you hope they'll say?
God. But I have very, very little expectation that 50 years from now, even my great grandchildren will have any idea who the hell I am. But no, it's just, you always hope you're going to leave a legacy of leaving the world just a little better than when you found it. And I happen to be Jewish. In my tradition, there's an expression called tikkun olam, which means the betterment of the world. And the idea is for you to leave the world a better place than you found it. That's the whole point. And in my own little tiny ways, that's all I'm trying to do. And so if somebody says to me, who's a pretty good guy, and he positively influenced other people, man, what better legacy than that?
Wow, I think that's a perfect place to end it. Bob, thank you so much for your time with us. Record holder, you're a total champion at life. I cannot wait to see what you do next, whatever it is. Blessings to you and to your wife. Is it Suzanne?
Suzanne is my best supporter. Couldn't ask for more support from anybody. Yeah.
Oh, good for her. Good for you.
Thanks, Scotty.
Woman, wherever she wants to go, take a break, out to dinner, wherever she wants to go, take her.
You got it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bob. Take care.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.